Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. HeirofCarthage here, and it is Egypt versus Carthage. Folks, I've got so many Rome 2 replays, it's kind of hard for me to even get through it all, but we're going to. And don't get me wrong, this is a great problem to have, and I am not going to complain. If you all bury me in Rome 2 replays, then I will spend the rest of my life and then beyond, yes, as a zombie, continuing to cast them, so you all will never escape having to hear my voice. Anyway, I hope you all are excited for some battles. Hopefully this will be fun. I'm excited to see some Carthage on the battlefield. They've got some Numidian cavalry rolling here, and it's backed up by some mercenary Scutari cav. And then we're going to have some Carthaginian cavalry and a bodyguard. It looks like Scutari and Carthaginian. So, okay, let's take a look at the Carthaginian infantry. That's a lot of cavalry for Carthage. I see a single mercenary Balearic, a line of mercenary Scutari, and it looks like Samnite warriors and mercenary noble fighters in the back. So a pretty tanky infantry line in the back. A lot of cavalry. Let's go see what Egypt's up to. They've got thorax swords, it looks like, as the mainline infantry. The front is Thurio spears, and it looks like Cretan archers and Egyptian slingers. They do have some Tarentine cavalry, or as I called them, the mercantary Tarentine cavalry. These ones are not mercentaries, though. But in any case, let's take a look at the rest of the army. We've got some Galatian swords, Levi Thurio spears, good cheap unit with some javelins. And then there's some Egyptian cavalry here, which, I mean, doesn't seem altogether terrible depending on the price. Their melee defense is not great. Their armor's kind of mediocre, but again, if the price is right, should be a decent hitter. They are mixed with some citizen cavalry, which we know are pretty underwhelming. It looks like the Egyptian cavalry were honestly very similar to the citizens. And there's a royal thorax sword for the general, so this is a pretty tanky unit, the royal thorax sword. It's not like the highest attack, but it's pretty solid, and they're going to be a dangerous unit. So let's just see how this one plays out. Carthage has those Numidian cavalry, which should technically be superior in skirmishing to the Tarentines. The Tarentines, though, they have a shield, and they can tank a little bit more. Let's see, these late Libyan hoplites are pushing quite a ways forward. They pulled some javelins, and the Egyptian slingers now have some shots at the Scutari cavalry. Those archers, they're going to shred up those hoplites as they retreat. Yeah, when you have to turn your back to someone, it is definitely going to take a toll on that unit, so you don't want to have to turn your back if you can help it. It's too bad there's not a way to actually have a unit slowly back up with their shields forward. That would be kind of a cool feature if CA could ever add that as a maneuver. But yeah, I'm thinking Carthage, the Samnites, I mean, Carthage's infantry is definitely up to par, I would say, against the Egyptians. Probably the only thing that gives the Egyptians maybe an edge is their infantry plus the royal thorax swords. I think the Thurio spears are a nice touch, though, but I mean, if these lighter Carthaginian infantry manage to get into the Thurio spears without too many javelins, they should perform well, but Carthage is already losing a Scutari cavalry, and their late Libyans are soaking up some fire, and then this Egyptian cavalry here gets a charge into that Balearic slinger, which is totally worth it, because the Balearic slinger costs a lot, and theoretically, this unit does not. I do kind of like that the late Libyans are at least drawing the attention of some of these units. That Egyptian cavalry is just going to go for broke into the Balearic slingers, and I don't disagree. That's probably not a bad call. Looks like the Numidian cavalry kind of taunting the Tarentine cavalry. It'll be a little faster, and their javelins will do more damage, but it would not be as good in a melee as the Tarentine cavalry. Oh, that was totally worth it. Just suiciding into those slingers, because it totally tied them down. Carthage at some point is going to have to charge. And honestly, Carthage could overload the left flank, or sorry, the right flank of the Egyptians. It's the left flank of Carthage because of the positioning. But that would leave Carthage in a position to try and hold the other flank, which would be rough because the Samnite warrior would get overpowered. So both players have the opportunity to try and overload a flank and start a wrap-up. The Egyptians would be coming from the right of Carthage, and then Carthage on its left has such an opportunity. Let's see, it looks like Carthage is going to go ahead and go for it. They're not timed very well here, though. These infantry are a little too far behind, in my opinion, but we will see whether that becomes truth. And the Samnites here probably don't want to get out here and engage those thorax swords first. They might want to wear them down. There's a lot of Galatians and other units, but we'll just kind of see what happens here. I think Carthage got a little too far ahead of itself with these Gallic warriors and mercenary Scutari. They're going to end up getting hit by that citizen cavalry. This most mercenary noble fighter should crush that thorax sword. And with the support of the Numidian cavalry, it could keep some of those units off its back, but I imagine it's going to take a lot of... Oh, those are Kushite shield women. Ah, okay, so I was thinking Levithurios there for a minute. The Kushite shield women are going to get intercepted by the mercenary Samnites, but that Carthaginian cavalry better get away because they had the cavalry counter tactics on there, which means they get a lot of extra bonus versus large. Carthaginian cavalry here struggling with the Egyptian cavalry because it's under heavy fire. So, not a great place for them to be. Let's check out this fight. The mercenary Samnites doing okay against the thorax swords. This mercenary Scutari is totally outmatched right now, just heavily outmatched. So Carthage does have a numbers advantage in this vicinity, and then Egypt has the numbers advantage on the other side, so we'll kind of just see what happens. The Carthaginian general's in a bit of danger. Cue the Kentucky Fried Advisor from Fall of the Samurai, telling you that your lord is in mortal peril. Oh man, that's some good stuff. This Numidian cavalry really needs to be back over here helping, but as expected, the noble fighters just destroyed that flank. So Carthage has an opportunity to try and start rolling across. They are holding on the other flank, but their Samnites are getting pretty well crushed now by the Tarentine cavalry and Levithurios spears. It's a nice use of those cheap infantry units to get some really good value. Cheap infantry combined with cheap cavalry, I should say. There goes the Scutari. They did get 52 kills, but they were horribly overmatched in that spot. So Carthage is getting one of their flanks rolled up now. And Egypt is moving on over here, and they're starting to pour fire into the next infantry fight. Carthage has got to shut these Thurios spears down. Like, this is going to destroy all of Carthage's good infantry if they can't get in here and do something about this, because they lost one Samnite to it, and this one is about to be lost if they can't fix it real quick. Those javelins are going to crush that flank. So this late Libyan really needs to shut down the Levithurios spears, but then they've also now got to contend with the thorax sword, so they've got a lot going on. There are some Samnite warriors. This noble fighter decides to stay over here and crush this Thurios spear. I almost would have rather seen the Samnite warrior stay over there and the noble fighter pull back to the center, because the noble fighter is going to be needed to go after those royal thorax swords. Otherwise, those thorax swords are going to be in good shape. Samnite warrior's tanky. This one held on for a long time, but it's now cut off from its reinforcements. The power bar says it's somewhat close, but it says Egypt has the advantage, and I kind of believe it at the moment. Egypt has a decent bit of cavalry left, and they also have these slingers over here. So I feel like Carthage is going to have to get a little more efficient here. And see, Carthage is kind of moving into a blob fight here, which is, I guess, okay if they charge and then pull back the units that were in there, but this blob also gives really good capability for the skirmishers and javelins to come in. Carthage throws the Numidian cavalry in here in a desperate attempt to silence those Cretan archers, but there's not much more follow-up. Let's check over here. The noble fighters are up to 153 kills. They're definitely going to finish that unit. Yeah, this blob is definitely going to cost Carthage here. It is not good. Charge here into those Levithurios spears, but then that Scutari cavalry is just going to get countered and sandwiched by a couple of Egyptian cavalry, one Tarentine and the other just Egyptian cavalry, but the Thurios spears would do fine there for a little while at least. So Egypt is outnumbered here. That noble fighter has the potential to do a lot of damage to that general. Let's just kind of see what's left. Egypt doesn't have a ton of infantry left in the battlefield. They do have a few Galatian swords out here that they can bring back. The late Libyan hoplite coming out here. I think that's a good call. These Scutari cavalry really needed to get into these slingers and Cretan archers. Those units are just picking away at the Carthaginian infantry. Egypt is likely to lose here. And let's check out these noble fighters. They are tired, whereas the royal thorax sword is quite fresh and has better numbers. That thorax sword does have a good charge bonus as well. Not near as good as the noble fighters, but I don't think the noble fighters want this unsupported. Oof, yeah. They're going to be heavily outnumbered. The noble fighters have far better attack and a little better damage, but they're going to sacrifice it with armor. And defense is close, but armor for sure. There's a headhunt and battle rhythm going down, so... But there's a nice rear charge from the Tarentine cavalry there, and every little bit's going to make a difference, so... Those Royal Thorax swords definitely taking some damage, but the mercenary noble fighters were tired and kind of weakened prior to battle. And then their rear did not get covered there, and otherwise they may have been able to turn that a little if they would have had some support, but the Egyptians got their support in there sooner. And again, Carthage has decent numbers over here, but their morale is kind of starting to falter. And their general, I think, just kicked the bucket because their morale really tanked hard here. Yeah. They lost their noble fighter there as well. So I'm thinking the general died. So, yep, Carthage is not going to be able to finish it. Egypt's going to get a pretty clear victory here against my beloved Carthage. Egypt and Carthage are interesting factions, though. They're kind of unique between the two. They have a lot of specialty units, but neither one is just like a powerhouse in and of itself, right? Like I said, both of them have I don't know, they're kind of like Swiss Army knives, right? They have a lot of tools. None of their tools are just absolutely spectacular, but if used right, they can be quite good. I would say Egypt probably has maybe a few more tools overall, but it's kind of different tools, to be honest. Like, Carthage has fairly subpar infantry. They do have elephants. They have access to some decent skirmishers with the Balearics and the Cretans, albeit expensive skirmishers. I would say that Carthage's roster is lacking in terms of, like, good mid-tier swords. They have okay options, and they're also definitely lacking in terms of, like, a solid, heavy melee cavalry for the price. And those things make them where they're not really a powerhouse, whereas on Egypt's side, they do have some really stellar infantry, kind of like Carthage does with the noble fighters. They have the Galatian Royal Guard, but they're prohibitively expensive, and so they tend to rely on cheaper units that are kind of more, middle of the road, kind of like Carthage does. But they also have a lot of tools, these Egyptian cavalry, the Ptolemaic cavalry. Ptolemaic cavalry, of course, much better than the Carthaginian noble cavalry. They have some skirmisher cavalry with the Tarentines. They've got some cheap slingers. They have cheap archers. They've also got Rhodians and Cretans if they need it. They even have some pikes, kind of like Carthage also has some pikes. So again, these factions have a lot of tools at their disposal. They won't probably be the master of a single trade, but they will kind of be a jack of all trades. And it makes them an interesting faction. But congrats to Ram the Lord here with a good victory. Inspector Python, not quite able to pull this one off with Carthage. He did get a lot of kills with those noble fighters. They just ended up getting a little bit overmatched there in the end by that Royal Thorax sword, which is a tough unit. It was fresh, it was better armored, and it's just coming into that battle supported, whereas the mercenary noble fighters had to kind of come in alone, and it ended up being just a little more than they could handle. But fun game. Hope y'all enjoyed that one. Appreciate Ram sending it over. He, like many others, has sent the replay, and I appreciate it. And I will be trying to get to as many as I can. HeirofCarthage signing out for now. I'll see you all soon with some more action in Total War Rome 2.